It is the Anfield wrap after Liverpool have beaten Southampton by 3-0. With me, I've got Rob Gutmann, Dave Segar and Stu Wright. We're going to get into everything we can out of that Southampton game, and then we're going to have a little bit of a chat about what Liverpool are going to do when they head off to Sevilla in the Champions League this week. But, Rob, first and foremost, it was a controlled performance where the side who are comfortably the better side came out with all the points.
Yeah. Control. Yeah, it was controlled. My abiding sort of take from it about half time was beyond the control. It was evidence that if you put a lot of really good footballers in your team together, it pays dividends. They weren't a bus parky team, but they were very, very compact. And I said to them, my mate sat next to me, these don't make mistakes too readily. We're going to have to be good. And that's why we don't score a goal against them last season, I think, in 4 encounters. They're not down to be gifting you on the way Huddersfield did, I think, the other week. And although we probe and are patient and are bit by bit, you think the opening them up bit is coming, it does take a quality goal to unlock the door. But I think that's what happens if you have quality players. And this is the first time in the league, certainly, that we've had the magic foursome, the Fab Four, on the pitch at the same time. So it's no accident. Who knew that good footballers make good things happen?
Dave, I mean, it's a very fair point from Rob. They've done Liverpool opened it up. They did the decent thing. There'd been a couple of times of nearly getting in. My thing was, I was just sort of thinking, there's only one team who's going to score here, and I was also thinking it was because of the quality players. It was also because of the general sort of stranglehold Liverpool had on the game. I was just thinking, this is a matter of when. This is not a matter of if.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched it back, or the match of the day highlights back this morning, and didn't even remember that as nervous as you feel at the game, because you're just obviously thinking, oh God, the worst could happen at some point. Maybe Southampton will nick one. But Ryan Bertrand has a free kick about midway through the first half, whenever it was, and they said that's the first shot they've had in the whole game, the first time they've been anywhere near Liverpool's goal. And they end up finishing the game without having any shots on target. But you remember from the first half hour or so, and Pellegrino notes it after the game, that Southampton were very much in the game up until Salah scored. Not in terms of actually threatening us, but it didn't really look like we were banging on the door like it's going to happen any moment now. And then that wonderful moment from Firmino when he nicks the ball off them after our corner, gives it to Salah and he bends it in, and from then on you could sort of see everyone in the Southampton shirts just slumping and thinking, oh God, we've conceded a goal, we're incapable of scoring them at the moment, so that's pretty much game over.
It did. Sorry, just to cut across, it did feel as though the match was. I celebrated that like we'd won the game.
Yeah.
I actually felt we'd won the game at that moment.
Well, just on that, one of the things I think that you're seeing from this Liverpool side at the minute, Stu, is how well they feel the pace of it. And I actually think Firmino's best at that. He very much feels the pace of the game, and he's aware of when there's going to be a sudden opportunity to quicken and to nick the ball back and to shift it on. I think that you saw that there. That I was just waiting for the moment of quality, if you know what I mean. I was just waiting for two very good players to do two very good things, and Liverpool find themselves 1-0 up.
Yeah, it seems to be. I think it's something we're getting better at. I mean, you say there that we're good at feeling the pace of the game. I'm not always sure we are. I think since this manager's been in place, it's been. I mean, everyone talks about how we're full throttle and all this, and we're not. There are times that we are. There are times in games that we are, and there are actual games where we clearly go out to play like that. But I think a lot of the time against the mid-table and lower half teams at home, we do start slow. We do tend to try and feel the game out and see what's what before we commit. And at times it's worked, and at other times it hasn't. I do think we're getting better at it. I think there are players who are better at it. I mean, you've mentioned Firmino there, and yesterday it worked to perfection, I thought. But we still needed the game opening up by a very special goal. That's what makes the difference. Salah scoring a goal from outside the box. For all our pressure, that opens them up then, and then we can relax a little bit. The crowd can relax, and we can play our football a bit more. And ultimately, at some point, they've got to come out. And it's in games where that doesn't happen, where you don't get that worldie and things aren't quite going for you, and you haven't started at the necessary pace to roll a team over that I think we've come unstuck in the past. But yesterday, I can't complain. Yesterday was it to perfection, really. I mean, it was. We wore them down. We got that goal, and then we opened up, and it could have ended up 6 or 7. It could have ended up anything, really. I mean, taking the front line off towards the end is, I think, what saved embarrassment for Southampton towards the end.
I think Sadio Mane is the key player in the opening phase of the game. He's the one actually getting in behind them properly. Twice he breaks on the left. As he play a 1-2, he gets and he whips balls across, and we're not quite set in the middle. And I notice at a pace where the game, Southampton are getting a bit settled, he forces the corner from which the goal comes. And it happens because he's an naturally explosive player. So the ball is loose wide on our wide right-hand side, and he pounces very, very quickly. Dives on it and is about to get a shot away, and they get a blocking quickly, and from there the corner happens. I thought he was hugely influential. I was very pleased that he got a start. We still don't know how injured he was in the week beforehand or not, and how much football he's got in him over the next number of weeks, or whether we're going to have to sort of nurse him through with this hamstring that's become a little bit vulnerable. But I thought he was crucial in that early phase.
There is, on that, I'll actually go back to you on this, Rob, where you said that, for instance, you felt like the opening goal was the winning goal. And you were right to say that, as a team, Southampton don't make mistakes. But one of the things that sort of struck me watching them, and why I sort of agree with you, I thought as soon as we go 1-0 up here, this is unless we don't capitalise again by about 80 and there's a bit of a kitchen sink job and we're unlucky, I don't see a way back. And they don't make many mistakes, but they don't really inspire at all, do they? And I think they're a strange side to play against, in that you can see that there's a lot of quality in there, but there's something so inherently conservative about them, and arguably has been for 2 or 3 years now. I don't even think this is just this manager, where there's a lot of players there who just don't take that many risks, or don't take interest in risks, or don't gamble in any real way. And so you know that if you manage to sort of knock the first block out of the wall, realistically the wall's just going to come tumbling down.
Yeah, you can kind of see there's a philosophy that's cutting through from manager to manager to manager now. And it's about this team keeping it safety first. You can almost see why a Virgil van Dijk is so important to that football club in a certain sense, because they are, without being the most overtly defensive team, they pride themselves on not giving much away. I thought in the early exchanges, whilst Mane was stood out for us, or that Romeu did for them, I thought he faded. He ran out of puff as the game went on a bit, but he was very, very potent in tracking a couple of runs. He'd obviously thought he'd set himself psychologically that he was not just going to have the piss taken out of him by Salah and Coutinho, and twice he caught up with them, showed real legs on them, and I thought he was impressive. But Southampton going forward, I think it was the semi-final in January where Trent plays, having just played at Old Trafford. I think we have injuries then, and they set Bertrand and Redmond on him, and he has a torrid night, really, Trent, that night. This time, Redmond, I don't know if I'm right, but Redmond seemed to be more central a lot of the time. Was it Tadic and Boujal, is he called? Boujal, sorry, who were pulling wider, and Trent has a really, really good game. I think Ryan Bertrand's a very impressive fullback. Notwithstanding Albi Moreno's now the best left back in Europe, I would have Ryan Bertrand at the drop of a hat. But I agree with you broadly. They're nothing going forward. That's why I think, to be honest, on one final caveat, this is why I think they badly need to be selling us Virgil van Dijk, so they can spend all those winnings on the forwards.
It is a strange thing, but I think the other thing is, the other reason why, and whilst the crowd is still often a little bit anxious, Dave, at times, we have almost, in amongst this game and the games that have preceded it, we've got the beginnings now of a bit of a fortress Anfield. Only Burnley have come here and scored so far this season. Long may that continue. Burnley are scoring everywhere they go, so it almost doesn't count. But they're also, it's now a bit of a home record. Yes, there's been a couple of draws, and they are frustrating, but, Liverpool, you sort of now thought, well, that was almost that. This is now in our back pocket.
Yeah, is it 6 games and only 1 goal conceded? I think now.
Is that right? Oh.
Yeah. Which
only Burnley have scored past us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which I'm not going to say for a second that means our defence is absolutely fine, and they just need to learn how to do the same thing on the road. I think it's clearly the way the team is set up in home games and the way they've approached these games. And we have obviously we battered Arsenal. There was the 0-0 with Manchester United, and we've got Chelsea coming up next week, which is going to be very interesting how we approach that one. But it does feel like we are going into every home game against whatever opposition thinking we're going to win 3-4-0 and just addressing it accordingly. And it's not even a case of, as we were sort of the brush we were painted with was, Liverpool, they come out first 20, 30 minutes and they blow you away, and that's how they win their home games. And it's not that at all anymore. It's completely...
It's almost the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. It's considered, and talking about Huddersfield earlier, that game was the epitome of one where in previous years you would have looked at it and said, this is the sort of game we do go on and draw 0-0 or 1-1. But we just went on and professionally saw the game out in the second half. And yesterday felt similar in a sense of the first half hour, but then once Salah scores, we realised, okay, we're on our way now, and this game is going to be won by us. And
just on the entire shape of the game there, Stu, there's the second before half-time, which means that we go in, we can relax. Southampton decide they're going to have a little bit of a go coming out at the start of the second half. I think Lovren makes one really good block. But then Coutinho makes it 3, and it really was this idea of, right, we just dropped the intensity there. And it was we all shake hands and go home. And Southampton are almost too sane a football team. They're too sane, too measured, too reasonable to have then put up a fight. They've just sort of gone, well, 3-0. It was as though everyone shook hands. I think that, if the two managers could have negotiated between them at that point and just finished the game, both would have been quite happy to do so. And that, again, is a bit of a shift from us. We were happy to look for a fourth, but we weren't absolutely burning with desire to get one.
Yeah, it was really just like you said there. I mean, it was laughable, really. There was the third goal goes in, and within seconds you got one of the flying wingers coming off, and the Ox coming on, and then you've got the other one coming off, and you've got Milner coming on, and it was kind of a shake hands and that'll do us, boys, and everyone go home now. We won't embarrass you any further, and it was really that kind of feeling. And I'm as much as you are a little bit frustrated, because as soon as the third went in, I said to the fella next to me, could be anything now. This could be anything. I was actually really pleased with those decisions from the manager. Look at the schedule.
And the players on the pitch as well. They've got the game heads on. They're thinking this is just the first of 13.
Well, there was no. It was notable. There was no one with their head down as they were coming off.
Yeah, no protests were there?
No, not at all. Coutinho was having a little cuddle with Klopp, and it's all fine. And
Salah's on a hat trick, but he's not bothered. He feels he's had long enough to try to get the third.
Because you've got to be thinking in your head, pick me on Tuesday, boss. If I played the full 90, I probably got less chance. So, I thought it was a really good decision. I thought it was a very mature performance by everyone from beginning to end. I think when we talk about game plans, they say at war, don't they? They say that the first thing that goes out of the window is a plan. If something goes wrong, no matter how good the plan at war and in military operations, and I think the same is true of football. It's a fluid operation. You can have the best plans in the world, but things change, and you've got another team of lads there to play against. But when the manager's rolling out his plan to the players before the game, I don't think he could have imagined it going as to perfection as what it unfolded. And the fact that with 20 minutes to go, we're all able to shake hands, rest legs, show a bit of game management, players not do anything daft, which is lovely, especially for the back four. Everyone show a bit of maturity. Fantastic.
Yeah, I was trying to guess what order those substitutions were going to happen. I know you want to talk about it later in the show, Neil, but with obviously Sevilla in mind, with Chelsea in mind, even looking ahead to Stoke next week, Klopp sort of hints at this before. He doesn't hint at it, he's actually quite explicit before the game. He goes, I haven't got all 13 games ahead planned, or whatever the number was he named. I think it was about that. He goes, but I can't just play them until they get injured. So I do think we're going to enter a very different phase of the Klopp era now, because he has had 2 games where we've seen the 2 or 3 rotations, but this is so intense.
And it's his third season of trying to deal with it.
Yeah, and he's not licked it, but now he's got the most resources to deal with it. He has to back himself to test these resources now. He has to back himself to say, no Sadio Mane, it's Oxlade-Chamberlain, even though Sadio's perfectly fit, because I need him fitter for Chelsea.
Want to talk about, we mentioned the first goal, how Firmino does something very good, Klavan knocks it off, and Salah bends it brilliantly into the far post. The second goal is also a Salah goal, but in the spirit, Stu, of goals being scored at times by two very good players doing very good things, the Coutinho ball through to Salah and Coutinho playing deeper in general, you could see exactly the value of that there, that he's able to see the whole pitch. You can see this diagonal run bent around, a classic centre-forwards run from Salah that arcs him in, and he plays the absolutely inch-perfect pass so that it's a really good finish, but it's made easier by the ball.
I think we're just in a wonderful position with Coutinho at the moment. Forgetting all the transfer speculation, I mean positionally, I felt that for the first year or so that we had Klopp, he was blind to the notion of playing him centrally, and he was always out wide, and we were all craving. We were talking about, I remember when he played as number 8 under Rodgers, and over the last 6 months, we've seen more and more of that. And I think we're just in a great situation with him now, because he can play in that position, or we can give Mane a rest. I mean, I'm quite happy on Tuesday if Coutinho switches over to the left, because we've still got that pace on the other side. I think we are blessed now to have that. When he plays like that in a deeper position like that, and the balance is right around him. And I do think the balance was, in terms of Henderson and Wijnaldum, I thought they were both great yesterday, by the way. They moved the ball so quickly, which made his job so much easier. He's just unplayable when he's like that. But it also helps. You put a ball like that second goal through, there's not many players in the world who are going to catch it. You look at actually Salah's starting position for that. He's miles away from it, and he's calling for it. He's pointing to where he wants it.
Gives him little eyebrows.
Gives him the eye, yeah. But he's got no right to. And if you're a Southampton central defender, there's no way you can anticipate that he can possibly make that. Even if you have a feeling you know how quick Salah is, that is just unreal to make it there. And when he gets there, to have the composure to think the finishing as well, it's frighteningly good. It's frighteningly good, and it really wets the whistle for the rest of the season. Now we're seeing these lads on the pitch together.
Yeah, I particularly loved about that second goal was how daft it did make Van Dijk look. Where I think it's just before it comes to him, he gets what he considers to be fouled by Firmino, and he gets up and he waves his arms and he's a bit frustrated, and then he realises the play's still going. Coutinho's got the ball and thinks, oh, he's quite good. He might do something here, but then he just steps up and as if he's almost going to go and challenge Firmino, who's I think he's level with Coutinho at the time. He's about 35 yards from goal. And leaves this huge gap behind him. And Wesley Hurt, however you pronounce it, realises, oh, good, I'll just mark Salah then, shall I? And then he runs across him and thinks, okay, he's quite quick and he's finished and we're done here. And but when Coutinho gets the ball, I love that, as you said, Stu, about Salah being so far away from it, but he's obviously played with him long enough now and seen him before to know he's good enough to find me.
Just on that, Dave, and I'll come back to you on it, when you mentioned in there that, Coutinho's ball often tends to be Firmino.
Yeah.
So if you're Van Dijk, you're thinking, well, that's where he's got to go, and I've got to go and press there, because all of a sudden my holding midfielders have been dragged out of shape because they're worried about Coutinho, and someone's got to deal with Firmino, because I don't want him picking the ball up 30 yards from goal and being able to turn. And then you're thinking, well, if you're right to point out, you're going, well, hang on, I've got him to deal with, and someone somewhere's thinking about Mane. And this sort of goes back to Rob's point from the start. Suddenly if you've got that as a front four plus two tidy fullbacks, you are in a position there where you're thinking to yourself, both Wijnaldum and Henderson aren't shy of making a run. My point is, there's only so much you can constantly deal with. There's a point where you're just sort of overwhelmed, and then when there's you're already feeling a bit overwhelmed, and then there's a ball of genuine quality which leads to the possibility for a finish of genuine quality.
Well, that's it. And obviously, as long as everyone's fit and we can do this in more home games, having that many weapons to go at people with is frightening. That you've got. I mean, Mane, I think yesterday, it obviously doesn't come out with the numbers for it, but I did, as Rob said earlier, I thought he was exceptional at times yesterday. His touch, the threat he was providing from wide, and then of course you think once he's got the ball, if he gives it to someone else, then we've got to look after Coutinho, look after Firmino, and then that Salah guy who keeps scoring.
Neil, sorry, can I just mention the Van Dijk thing again?
Go on.
I've watched that a few times back, and I think we're in a bit of a weird place as a Liverpool fan base over an opposition player at the moment, because we're so desperate for a centre half, we're so desperate for him, and this. Yesterday he was caught in no man's land, wasn't he? And as you said, Dave, we stepped forward to go to Firmino, which actually might not have been the wrong thing.
There was cover behind him,
There was cover, exactly.
Two lads.
So it wasn't necessarily the wrong thing to do. And I think even if he had dropped back, he was dead anyway. There was no way he could do anything about it. But what struck me was, even if that was the right decision, because the way it looked, if the shoe was on the other foot and he did that for us, if he did that in a red shirt, let's say it was Dejan Lovren yesterday who did it, he'd have been absolutely tore apart, he'd have been slaughtered. And Van Dijk, as a Liverpool player, 6 months down the line, if he's had one or two ricks in him in an adjustment period, and he does that, he will be slaughtered as well. And I just think that there's a little bit of we're all a bit weird. I think about Van. I was saying to you before we started the show, Rob, that I've never watched an opposition player, more than I watched Van Dijk yesterday, off the ball and everything. Just his body language, how he was talking to the players around him, all very good, all very impressive. But I just thought that was a really weird moment, and I saw. Shearer had the pop at him last night on Match of the Day.
Did he?
Yeah, over that moment. Over that moment, he had the pop at him. And then the tirade that came on Twitter against Shearer at that moment from Liverpool fans defending the opposition player.
More so than Southampton.
More so, yeah, it just struck me as a really weird situation. And if it had been a Liverpool player in that position, I don't think they'd have necessarily had the same support.
Just to come back to you on that, Stu, before we bring Rob back in, it is worth pointing out that the job of attacking footballers is to make defensive footballers look daft and look like they've done the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And that we should probably remember that when that's our players as well, that there's literally, what you said before, there's another set of lads who are trying to make your plans look daft, and so maybe we could, maybe we can speak up for everyone.
Yeah, I think making positional mistakes is more forgivable than technical errors. I think. A technical error is forgivable because you don't mean to make the thing. But at the end of the day, it says something about your quality as an overall football. I think positional mistakes, getting distracted by around those sort of things, those are part and parcel of football, and due to the plan that can be bigger than you. That sounds spiritual.
On Coutinho,
I was going to talk about the goal, Neil. Can I?
Yeah, talk about the goal.
What I loved about the goal is it was a quintessential golden age Liverpool goal. It was an 80s goal. It was Dalglish to Rush. It really was. And what's great about it, where I think Van Dijk, it's harsh to criticise, is Salah's run is timed across two men. Because he's inches onside, but he's very deliberately onside. That is what Ian Rush does, and I've seen very few strikers do that as routinely as well. And we're not seeing Salah do this routinely as well, but he clearly knows what to do. And the ball and the weight of the pass is like a Dalglish pass, and the finish actually is like a Dalglish finish as well.
Molby to Rush in '86 Cup
it's
final.
all those combos from that era. It was it's funny. It's not a sort of goal you see that often these days. Or all right, certainly not at Anfield or a Liverpool goal we see that often. Not that kind of that perfect. It's all about geometry, that goal, isn't it? It's about the run at a certain acute angle by the forward. It's about the way to pass at a certain specific angle by the assister, and then it's about the position the goalkeeper's forced to be in at a key moment, and how the ball's moved at that stage. I loved that goal.
What did you think of Coutinho deep in general?
I've loved seeing him deep since the tail end of last season. The thing about Coutinho deep, he's brilliant deep if he's got something to hit. I think that's why he's been pulled further forward and maybe not considered. Look, in Rodgers, in the near title-winning season, Coutinho's deeper in that a lot of the time there, but he's got Sterling, Sturridge and Suarez ahead of him. Makes all the sense in the world. Also, he's not as trusted because he's younger in those front three positions. I think in the recent past, he's in the front three, but if you pulled him into that midfield, what's left ahead of him? Not a lot, I don't think, a lot of the time, or it's only 2/3 of a situation. I'm almost thinking like in a Rafa team. If you had Coutinho now in 2009, where would you play him? You'd probably play him wide left or wide right. I don't know. You'd take one of Benayoun or Coutts positions, I think, because there's not as much to hit aside from Torres there. So I think that's possibly what's happened in this team, where you've got the likes of Salah and Mane and Firmino to hit. Coutinho makes all the sense in the world there.
It's the other thing I noticed with it as well, Dave. I mean, I think that you see this at times when he plays higher up. You see, especially Henderson. Henderson's first look is, where's Coutinho? That's his first look. Where's Coutinho? I think you see that, as I say, even when Coutinho's higher up. But when he knows Coutinho's near him in midfield, the number of times you saw him just pop the ball off, it might occasionally be square. It might, God forbid, every now and again end up being backwards, because that's the way football matches work. But you see that Henderson's going, where is Coutinho? Every single time. How can I get the ball to him very quickly right now?
Yeah, it seems to be a deliberate plan, and why not? Because it works so well. But it was interesting in the comments. The Brazil coach Chite said in the week about, I'd love to play Coutinho in centre mid for Brazil, but he doesn't play there for Liverpool, so I can't do. And then he plays him on the right of the front three, which I don't think he's ever played for Liverpool, which is very bizarre. But it's interesting that he's commented on that, obviously seeing himself that he thinks Coutinho is ideally suited to a midfield role, but isn't willing to play him for the national team there unless he's doing it week in, week out for Liverpool. And I think this is a time when he is going to do it. I hope he doesn't take credit for it and say, I told Klopp to do that now, and look how good it is. But to have him in there in that role, especially in home games, especially with maybe not so much yesterday, but when you're playing teams who are completely packing the defence and are not letting you through, having someone in that role who can thread the eye of a needle so easily and so often it's such a great weapon, having the front three that we do ahead of him as well, that you've got the players who can make those runs, and that he's got the trust of his teammates to take on that massive massive responsibility to basically be the start of almost every attack. And I think it helped Henderson and Wijnaldum yesterday as well, knowing that they could rely on Coutinho to do that bit, so they could do their roles and not have to worry so much about having to create as much themselves.
I think that the space, the amount of space ahead of Coutinho in that role is absolutely crucial when he's playing central, because I think when he first came across, there was a natural inclination to look at him and think, oh, he's a number 10. And he's not a number 10. We've seen that, we've tried it. And when you line up in a system like a 4-2-3-1, when he is...
in the middle of the three.
In the middle of the three, yeah, and he's just got one striker ahead of him, and that's all he's really got. That's all he's really looking at. I think he struggles, and he's got less space between him and the opposing defence. You know, he's too high up the pitch. When he drops into that number 8 position, we play more of a 4-3-3, as we first started seeing under Rodgers. Then I think he can be dynamite, and then it's all about the movements ahead of him. When Daniel Sturridge was at his very best at that time, in on that golden season, Coutinho and him really struck up an understanding. You felt that Sturridge would make a run and Coutinho would find him from that number 8 position. I think there was a game at Newcastle where they were just electric together.
This is actually the season before that, when they
in the
first
6
signed.
months.
Yeah. That's when that was their most potent period in a way.
And it looked like it had the potential of a really devastating partnership.
But it's interesting, the gap between the two players. Normally when you think of a partnership, when Rob says before about Dalglish and Rushdie, they're quite close to each other, at least they theoretically are on the pitch. The really interesting thing about the Coutinho Sturridge thing, as you're describing there, is whether or not you call them a number 10, and let's almost put the nomenclature to one side, he can be 40 yards away from where the lad who's about to make the run is and still find him. And that to me, the idea you can have a partnership that can shift you 40 yards across the pitch, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and although that's an unusual thing, I think what we've seen with Coutinho, that's not unusual for him. There was a game in pre-season, and I know it's only pre-season, but it was one of the first times we'd seen Coutinho and Salah play together. I think it may well have been Berlin.
I think you're right, yeah.
And Coutinho puts him through for the goal, again with a 40-yard ball, and it was just, the lad's making the run, and he can spot him from that distance, he can see through the crowd, and I think Coutinho likes having that map ahead of him. I think he likes having that vision of the game, of it all going on ahead of him, and he can do anything with the ball. I think his options are limited. He can do less with the ball because there are less opportunities, less options when the space is more condensed, and he's pressed higher up the pitch in a number 10 position, if that makes sense.
Salah's his dream partner. You could see it was actually before the German game. They play, is it in Asia we play Leicester and Palace?
Yeah.
They play a game together there, full game, and the same thing's happening. I think they both score in that game. And I think they both play together in Munich, don't they? In the Bayern Munich and the Germany one. He's ideal in a way, in a funny way, that Mane's not quite as ideal for him. I think Mane's doing more bits generally, whereas Salah
Mane's more of a midfielder, whereas Salah is a forward.
Yeah. Mane's looking for a Salah as well. Mane, although he's a fantastic striker quietly, he's also he's much more of a creator, whereas Salah is a creator, but it's not his primary. His primary role is to get between the sticks from wide positions.
Do you know what we don't see a lot of from Salah, but when we see it, it's gorgeous. Because he's playing on the wrong side, we don't actually see him cross a ball that often. There was the goal against Arsenal, I think it was the Sturridge goal against Arsenal, where he played on the left, and it was absolutely, I mean, the curve on the ball, it was just delicious onto that back post. But we've obviously seen him on corners now. He's got a corner on him, and we've been crying out for someone to be able to cross a dead ball from a corner for so long. This lad's got a natural whip when he takes a corner, and I think if we, with the addition of perhaps one or two bigger lads who are more of a threat from corners, I think we'll start to score more set pieces with his delivery from corners. To be honest,
he's so economical, Salah, isn't he? With everything he does, there's almost no touch that's wasted. And I love his ability to control and protect a football. I think it's quietly another level.
The amount of times he's picked it out of the air, like really high balls, he's just got it on his left foot and is completely in his control.
It's incredible. And if he gets it, and if there's two big lads running at him, and bundling into him while he's doing it, he can still do that. He can then readjust his body weight because he's got incredible balance and protect for a little guy. His protection of the ball is incredible. He's so strong.
He uses his arse brilliantly.
Yeah,
I love that about him.
Yes, he does. Kenny style,
Yeah.
He's brilliant. You don't see him. Even I mean, the likes of Firmino are really great at protecting the ball. All those lads can really look after a football. but they do get it nicked off them. Salah does not get the ball nicked off him. A lot's that to do with his pace, but it's also to do with his strength and determination.
I'm really glad you said that, Rob, to be honest, because I think we've got to assume that this goal streak that he's on at the moment,
it can't last because he'd be the
Yes,
greatest
again.
footballer of all time.
exactly. So there's going to have to be some kind of return to the mean there, and what I have been impressed at more than his goal return, that sounds daft really, but all right, just as much as his goal return is, technically he's at a different level than the player I thought we were signing. I mean, the way, as we've just said then, Dan, about it, the way he brings a ball out of the air, it's just, and the balance that he has, and the strength and the tenacity to go with it, and the way he'll track back. I mean, this guy is really starting to look like an all-rounder. I was always jealous of, first of all, Arsenal when they had Mark Overmars, and then Chelsea when they had Rob. And I always wanted a player like that. We hadn't had one since Barnes, who was basically a wide striker, was just unplayable, was going to score you 15 to 20 goals from a wide area, and would have the pace to just open teams up. And I think having both is the ideal.
Overmars is a good shout, actually.
Yeah.
Quite like Overmars. Yeah.
And I think this guy could well be, if he keeps anything like his current trajectory, he could be one of the most important signings that we've had for 10, 20 years. You know, I know it's very, very early days, but it's his all-round contribution. And even if the goals dry up somewhat, it's the pace and the combination with the players around him. It will open teams up and provide opportunities for other players.
He only needs to drop off from his current goal a game ratio, because it's a goal every 100 minutes. That is a goal a game, near as damn it. He needs to drop off to that, to a humble goal every 2 games, and he'll score over 30 this season.
He was a goal every 2 games in Italy last season. I mean, it's dead interesting that Stu mentions Overmars, because Overmars only got double figures in the league once.
Really?
Once in this league, and in fact in both this league and in La Liga, he only got double figures in the league.
Did he win the double that year?
That's his first season when no one knows what on earth's going on with him and can't handle him. But I think that there is. I don't necessarily. Firstly, I take Stu's reversion to the mean points, but if the mean is indeed a goal every 2 games, which is what it was last season for him playing for Roma, then you're right to say he breaks 30. But there is another thing here, which is this is now a third of a season. The idea that there is going to be some sort of drop off, I think there will be at some point, just simply off the vagaries of he might have 5 games without a goal, because that happens to practically every player. Kane doesn't score every single week, but he might then come back onto scoring at this sort of rate, because I think that's what he's there to do, and I think he knows that's what he's there to do. But the biggest thing for me, Stu, is it's not that he's scoring with every chance. He should actually open the scoring yesterday before he does, and that never phases him, and he just gets back on and he thinks, right, I'm going to get another opportunity and it's going to be coming in no time. And you see 2 different types of finishes from him yesterday. One which you'd probably, broadly speaking, on the expected goals thing, you would expect him to stick into the back of the net. One which is obviously a very good finish. But my point is, he's missing chances, and if he wasn't missing chances, I'd be going, you're right, like Josh King at the back end of last season stopped missing, which meant at some point Josh King's going to start missing again. My Salah thing is, he's actually missing chances, and that's what makes me think he doesn't necessarily slow down as much as you might expect.
What's mad about it is I almost feel like I want to stop referring to him as a winger now almost entirely, because he's a forward, but he basically is playing like a striker, not just a forward but a striker, but just coming at it from a weird angle where he's not naturally getting picked up. And it's the sheer volume of chances that he's getting, and it's not, if he misses the first couple, it's not, and this is a real sign of a good striker, it's not affecting him. He's come back for the 3rd and the 4th, and I feel like I'm damning him with faint praise here now, and I don't mean to, but I remember that when Andy Cole burst onto the scene, Newcastle, and then obviously United bought him, and he would, because of his sheer pace, he would get so many chances, and he'd miss loads, but he'd score 40. It's just crackers. But he'd get so many chances, and I'm not comparing his attributes to Andy Cole's at all, but it's the sheer volume and
much better.
Well, there we go. and also the mentality to, regardless if I missed one, I'm going to get another one in 5 minutes because I'm just that fast, and the opportunity, I've got these boss lads around me, another one's coming, I'll score that, and he just keeps going, and I think I can totally see your point, Neil, why the evidence thus far doesn't suggest a reversion to anything below, a goal every 2 games. And, if we're getting a lad from wide area scoring a goal every 2 games, then I'll take that all day long as well.
Well, you can see why for a couple of years people said Harry Kane has to stop being this good because the style of goal Harry Kane was scoring, I think, as much as anything. Because they were all such true hits, weren't they? So many, you can't be that ruthless in front of goal all the time. Harry Kane scored a lot of very good goals, but most of Salah's goals, I mean, the 2 yesterday are exceptions to the rule, really, especially the first one. It's a lot of or you watch his goal reel at Roma and you watch most of his Liverpool goal reel, they're all scored inside the 6-yard box. That's not just good. That instinct's not going to stop. And those chances inside the 6-yard box aren't going to get harder. They're point blank, a hell of a lot of these chances. And with good reason. Because I think he is a winger. You look at his starting position in the second half, he plays wide. He's never got his back up against a centre-half. He's not a striker in any sense. He's not even a Thierry Henry type striker. But what he does have when he's not in possession of the football, he has a striker's instinct to gamble. To gamble in that 6-yard box. He's combined the 2 roles.
It's really interesting as well that he's come into that way of thinking, because at Roma he did actually spend a lot of time, obviously as a wide player, but he spent a lot of time going on the outside and cutting it back to Edin Dzeko to score. And he's not got that at Liverpool because Firmino's a completely different type of player.
Very true, yeah.
But I presume, deliberately from Klopp, he's kind of said, you did this at Roma, well, instead you're going to cut inside and you're going to be the one getting on the end of other people's stuff. And he's adapted that. I mean, he's still obviously scored loads of goals at Roma, but he's adapted that so brilliantly and so flawlessly that not having a big lad who he can just pull the ball back to, who's going to stick it in the back of the net, and he's taken on that responsibility himself. And it just says even more about how good he's been.
We manage the legs after we go 3-0 up. The third goal is a neat finish from Coutinho. Probably should score the better goal earlier on when he shimmies through and tries to pass it into the bottom corner and it just
pulls
goes
it.
wide.
Hasn't done that for a while.
Yeah, just goes wide. There is, though, it's a neat enough finish from the rebound. It's great to see him get in the box, which is the other thing about him playing centrally in the midfield 3, is it gives you another attacking midfielder who may well have the instinct just to hit the edge of the area. Then you watch us manage legs a little bit, and I think it is interesting also watching. There's a bit of a decision for players to be each other's intensity. You get the impression the manager knows who he's... If I say run into the ground, Rob, it's wrong, but you get the impression the manager sort of knows he can ask Moreno to do more running across the course of a half. He can ask Wijnaldum and Henderson. You could see at times Henderson was the furthest man forward, closing people down towards the back end of the game. Yeah. Like it's almost like, right, part of your job is to actually protect some of these other lads' legs as well.
Yeah, and the Moreno chance is almost an example of that, the one he should just let his right foot do something for once. He just doesn't back himself at all. Such a shame, because it's a wonderful move and a brilliant assist by Salah, isn't it? If it goes in. Yes, I think that's right. There are some players in the squad who've got incredible engines. Klopp described Milner wasn't playing. He came on, didn't he? Milner as a machine physically. I think Moreno's quite. We've all been hailing Moreno's comeback, and he's a great player, but he is a machine physically. Moreno's not going to miss a minute of football this season, I think, if he stays fit. Henderson's a strange one because he's vulnerable to an injury now. We know. But he is also incredibly fit. I did think the way the legs were saved and the legs that were taken off early were interesting, though, Neil, yesterday. I think they were indicative of what his plan is for the at least the four. They say he's not planning 13 games ahead. I certainly think he's looking a fortnight ahead. Yeah. And I think, can we talk about Seville quickly, yeah? Just to what no, not going to do Seville.
So Seville in a bit. We're going to do Seville in a bit.
All right, then talk about something else. Then I've totally lost my train of thought.
I think the approach was absolutely the right one. I mean, I spoke to you, Neil, on the other day on City Talk about how he was going to line up, what the kind of team he was going to play, and trying to think at the time like, he might rest a few or whatever. But I think he absolutely did it the right way, where he went with his strong team, and then once the game was won, he brought off the lads who needed resting, and he backed them to do that, to get the game won fairly early and make the necessary changes, and obviously give minutes to those who needed it off the bench. But I think in terms of the way Moreno yesterday, I thought was absolutely outstanding anyway. But he's been But it's the way he's been. Not necessarily yesterday, because Mane played there, but in other games he's been entrusted to be the entire left side of the team.
Yeah.
That that again goes to see what kind of engine he's got, that he can get up and down the pitch wherever the ball is. But it's I think yesterday, in terms of the way it all flowed together and the way the team was set up, I think it's a lot of what Klopp will have seen from that performance. I think he's going to take forward in these upcoming games.
We'll come on to talk about Sevilla in a minute, Stu, but before that I do actually want to talk about, you touched on it before, Van Dijk and Lovren, and there's a good piece by Dan Morgan on the Anfield app talking about the two performances. It's worth starting actually with Lovren, who, as I say, puts a really good block in, does something a bit mad in the second half when he sort of ends up knocking it up in the air when he can maybe do a bit better. But I just genuinely do think that being on the right, I think he's a better player on the right of the two. I think that you can draw that chart throughout his Liverpool career. I don't know quite why.
I have a theory on that.
Go on.
When he first came, and he's a right-footed player who likes to play left-sided centre back, and when he first came, Moreno was the left back, and Moreno was a very different Albi than what we're seeing this season, wasn't he? And he was a player who just vacate his position so much. He'd be so high up the pitch. And I think that when you've got a right-footed left centre-back whose natural tendency is to look inward, then I think that the space on that left-hand side can be exposed dramatically. And I think you see that in the Europa League final, to be honest with you. But it wasn't the only occasion. There was many, many times that season where I felt that it was the combination of the two that were bringing out the worst in each other. Albi would look better if he had a player who was more comfortable and dominant as a left-sided, left-footed, natural centre-back in that position. And vice versa. I think it was having a derogatory effect on Lovren as well as the fact that he had less cover in front of him than what he'd been used to at Southampton. So yeah, that's where I was at with it, and I think that if Lovren is to play left-sided centre-back for Liverpool, then you've got to make sure you've got the right person alongside him. So, for example, Milner was a smart move in that position. If Lovren was going to play there, you've got to have a more defensive. If Gomez, I know Gomez is the right-sided one, but if you had an equivalent of Gomez who's almost like a quasi centre-back, that would be fine too. But I think you've almost got to have the right balance there.
There's key moments, Stu, actually, early in the second half, where Lovren makes a very key block, one of Southampton's most dangerous situations in the whole game. And he makes it with his right foot, doesn't he? He dives in a confident way before the shot even gets away, or the cross. Then that's a Lovren that doesn't do that on the left.
What's interesting is I think we would all have said that if Matip was fit, we probably wouldn't have started Lovren. What would it be in Southampton? We've seen that sort of thing before, Dave, and yet that didn't seem to faze him at all, almost as though I think it being one more level. And it is fair to say that he'll have got in his own head massively after that Tottenham game. He wouldn't be human if he hadn't. And there has been question marks around that sort of stuff for him in the past. So it does seem like, in the end, insofar as these things can work quite nicely, maybe just all sort of came together for him. It was the right opponent for him to say, you know what, forget this sort of Liverpool thing. I've got these idiots to worry about behind me. Do you know what I mean? Like, as though he'd just gone, you know what, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah, I was really proud of his performance yesterday, that he'd been through so much with the Tottenham performance, and it clearly affected him. Obviously, there's the unfortunate social media aspect to it as well afterwards, but when he would have only presumably found out the day before, once the Matip news had emerged, that he was playing, so he wouldn't have had much time to think or dwell on it, which probably helped. But to have, obviously it helped that he was at home, so it was only travelling fans, but the Southampton fans were, as ever, getting on his back the entire game, booing him every touch, singing unfortunate songs about him. But the second half, especially, obviously because he was closer to them at that point. I was in the Upper Annie Road yesterday, and every time the Southampton fans started booing him or singing about him, all the Liverpool fans just tried to applaud and cheer and back him, and I really enjoyed that, because I know that there's obviously a lot of opinion about Lovren and people aren't completely convinced by him, but he did get a lot of backing.
When they were getting on his back and when there was the backing, the thing I noticed, Dave, is I don't know if and it's one of those things that maybe you just notice it and it could just be nonsense. Centre backs do get a lot of the ball, but I actually thought at that point, I think it was 2 or 3-0, and it looked as though Liverpool went through a 2-minute spell of deliberately passing to him. It
was really annoying actually, because we were all applauding his touch, and then we'd applaud, he'd give it to Henderson, give it back, and we're like, can you stop giving it to him? We're fed up of applauding and cheering him here. We just want to watch the game.
All that sort of stuff was good. Very quickly, Rob, because it feels a dereliction of duty not to mention it. It's a tidy And in fact, if anything, it's an impressive performance because it wasn't full of bells and whistles. A tidy display from Alexander-Arnold in terms of winning his battles, keeping his shape, being pretty responsible, thinking his way through the game.
Yeah, I thought he was great. I mean, the first half in particular, I think he was...
He's unlucky not to score.
Yeah, yes, when he won the first big chance of the game.
Through.
Yeah. You know, I was praising Joe Gomez on a show the other day, the Wildcard show, but saying, you know, he's one of the most impressive young defenders since the Rob Jones era. And Rob Jones has always been a benchmark for me because I've never been really so impressed by a young defender. But that was a Rob Jones-like full-back performance yesterday. Trent's been out the side. And the elephant in the room, and Klopp's actually talked about it with him, he's a great young player with all the gifts, apart from the defensive discipline gifts. And he was so focused and concentrated. I think it might have helped his cause psychologically that he was given such a torrid time by that Southampton left flank in January, as I was saying earlier. I think he had a point to prove, and he looked very, very determined, Trent. You know what? On the strength of that, he doesn't readily get dropped for Gomez on the back. If he can repeat that performance, that was a bit special, I thought.
Yeah, he was. I think with it yesterday, when he was selected, you thought, a home game. Obviously, he is more attack minded than Gomez. It makes sense, and I did actually quite like that Gomez didn't start yesterday, because obviously all of the hyperbole around him this week, and rightly so, he was absolutely brilliant for England. But I was kind of thinking, if Gomez does play today, yesterday, that he would definitely be terrible, just because of all of the brilliant the right praise he's been getting. But what I really liked about Trent yesterday was he did make the odd mistake. I think he made a couple of times he let people in behind him, but then he was the one to rectify it. He didn't think, oh God, my teammates bail me out here. Yeah. He raced back. He's got
that recovery pace, hasn't he? Yeah. But there are times. I mean, there was a couple of occasions in that first half where, literally just in front of where I sit, I think he was caught out. He was caught out once positionally, and he was caught out on another occasion where he just committed too soon, really, and didn't have that wily old head of jockeying a player. But on both occasions, he not only showed he had the pace and the go-go gadget legs to recover, but also the tenacity, that determination of, oh shit, I've got to go and get this. And he had it back in split seconds. So that's the thing with him. If you've got a player who's learning the position and is going to be prone to occasional mistakes of enthusiasm, over enthusiasm, then if you've got the natural attributes to get yourself out of bother, then it's less of a risk, isn't it? You're mitigating it somewhat. I also felt that on paper, when you looked at the two games, you want to try and give both these lads games over the course of this season. You want to try and develop both of them. Southampton at home, and then followed by a tricky away tie in the Champions League. I knew I'd prefer to have Gomez in the away to Seville, for his more defensive mindset. I think that was the right move. And Trent, I think he should be playing home games where we're playing against mid-table fodder, where we should be able to be having it be more front-footed and more attack-minded. I think they're the type of games that we should be giving to Trent in that position.
Okay, then moving on to Seville. It's a funny one in that, again, Dave, you were doing the City Talk show and we were having the what will he do, what won't he do. It's maybe your markers are that Firmino gets 90 minutes, and so he might have a look at that. He might have a look at either of the central midfielders in terms of Wijnaldum and Henderson. He might have a look at full back, certainly at right back. Don't think he has a look at centre back if Matip's not fit. I suspect he goes the same again. What are you expecting from him?
I think minimal changes given how well yesterday went. I do think I think Chan will start. Obviously, he didn't yesterday. I do think Gomez will play. I was surprised. Firmino didn't come off yesterday, did he? No, he played the full 90. I was quite surprised by that because I'm assuming he's going to be playing again from the start in Seville. I don't know whether the intention is to perhaps see in that game if things are going well by the hour point. That's when you bring on maybe Sturridge in place of him. But I think in terms of the selection, I think he'll go with roughly the same as yesterday, and possibly Chan for maybe Wijnaldum. Because you'd imagine he's still going to go with the front four. I've
got very different views to you, Dave.
Oh, okay.
Go on, Rob.
I think, I've looked at these fixtures ahead, and you go, Chelsea, you want that team yesterday, more or less, give or take a Matip or a Gomez, but you definitely want that front six, more or less.
Do you think? You don't think he might want Lallana for that?
It depends if you can see Lallana in training. If you're getting the full fat version of Lallana,
Because Lallana wasn't on the bench.
yeah. So which says to me that Lallana,
It might just come too soon for him.
yeah, he could be dripped in over 3 weeks. This could be a real slow burner, Lallana coming back. I know we're all champing at the bit a bit to see him, but I'm almost not quite counting him. I think he wants the team he sees yesterday in full throttle mode. He may just look at not having a front four against Chelsea and having a solid 3. I don't know. But I think Sevilla away, mad as it sounds because it's technically the hardest game in the Champions League group, it's a sort of a free hit. I think it's a less important game than Stoke away 7 days after that. Because we can lose to Sevilla and still get out of this group. I think we can also play averagely in Sevilla and maybe nick it or draw it. So I think there's out the key front four of Salah, Mane, Coutinho and Firmino. I think he's going to target because I've thought this through a lot here. He's going to target the Seville game and the Stoke game and only play 2 of those 4 in each of those games. So if you go back, Salah came off last yesterday, didn't he? Firmino.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance Firmino and Salah could miss out. Coutinho and Mane come. So I think it could be Coutinho, Mane, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and one of Solanke or Sturridge in a front 4. It's easier to rotate around Henderson and Wijnaldum because Chan and Milner's not a big swap for that. It's almost like for like. And I'm also almost not asked what he does in defence. Quite frankly, outside of the front 4 positions, I almost think it doesn't matter. Just get a performance out of them. So, but I think he wants to go full fat against the likes of Chelsea, and I think he can afford to give a break to 2 out of the big 4 against Seville, and I think he'll repeat that against Stoke. Again, going strong against Brighton.
Stu, what do you think?
Similar to Rob, but perhaps different players. I don't think Mane plays. To be honest,
I would have thought not, but for the fact he comes off, yeah, maybe Mane doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Mane comes off perhaps at the weekend just simply because, again, he's been recovering, not necessarily because he's starting against Seville. So
yeah, I agree.
I mean, whether the manager does or doesn't, I wouldn't play Mane. I want him fresh for the weekend. I want him fresh for Chelsea. I want full throttle Mane. I also think that Chan. I agree. I think Chan will play. But I would also, if you assume that perhaps Oxlade-Chamberlain comes in for Mane, then...
what about Firmino? He can't play every single game.
To be honest, I'm more focused on... I think Milner could play, and I think Chan will play. And therefore, it's whether he maintains one of Henderson or Wijnaldum with them and drops Coutinho too. I suspect Coutinho will play. So then it may well be something along the lines of Chan, Milner and Coutinho. It just wouldn't surprise me at all.
I buy that. I'd go with that.
And I think that's experience that's solid away from home. I think it's enough to get something from Seville. Front 3 would be Ox, Salah and probably Firmino.
Okay, and Chelsea full strength.
Yeah, but I think I think changes are made in the Seville game. I think changes are in or during the game. I'm just not sure that he'll go with Sturridge away from home in the Champions League and think that when we've got
I could see Solanke starting. I wouldn't be shocked.
I'd be happy with that, but I'd be more surprised. I'd be more surprised because I've yet to see anything to indicate to me yet that the manager sees him as a viable starter in what is a pretty big game.
I think if he starts Solanke, I'm imposing what I deem to be sort of reality onto a situation we don't know. But I think if he starts Solanke, he's got a very angry Sturridge.
Yeah, definitely.
I think he's got a training ground Sturridge issue where if I'm Sturridge, I am absolutely kicking his door down the next day going, are you taking the piss now, mate?
I know, that's true.
And that is...
But...
No, I think that's... But I think you can do that, but... Would you want to do that before this run of games where you're going to want to start Sturridge in some of them, if you know what I mean? It might be that, and listen, it's all the psychology of the individual. You might think, well, if it makes him mad, it's a good thing. It means that when I next start him, I'll get this sort of type of Daniel Sturridge. But he's never seemed that sort of manager, Jurgen Klopp. He seemed very much, the players all know where they are with him. The players know what's going on. There's rarely a massive shock. There's rarely something around the corner where something unlikely happens, I think.
I think he can sell. I think Sturridge is at a phase in his career. This is not the Daniel Sturridge who knew the football world was at his feet anymore. Let's be right. Daniel Sturridge is looking for bonuses in his career at the moment.
I don't think he does think that, Rob. I think he's happy to say that Firmino's ahead of him if we're playing this sort of shape. I think he can accept that. I think he can accept that we might play two up front and one of them could be Salah and one could be Firmino. I think that makes sense to him. I think if you suddenly go, this lad who's never started a league game plays the Champions League away game against Sevilla ahead of you, that's stern.
Well,
that's
okay,
stern.
here's
If
my
you think
sell.
you're fully fit, Sturridge, and you've also been with him all the way. I think he will start Sturridge. I think if you've been with him all the way through the international break, as Sturridge has, working with him for that duration, and then suddenly this lad who, as I say, has never started a league game, goes and plays away at Sevilla. You're Daniel Sturridge. I am going. Are you taking the piss out of me, mate?
Well, I think a lot comes down to the fact Sturridge got himself into the team by being fantastic in training, apparently, according to Jurgen Klopp. He's been superb and got himself into the team, got the start, got a couple of goals in a couple of appearances. I think it depends how he's showing up in training. I think
let's just presume it's still fantastic
let's
because
assume,
it has been.
it's still a high level. I think my sell to Sturridge would be, yes, you are going to be playing soon. There's a lot of games, but this is one where we're going to be sitting quite deep and compact, and we think there's going to be quite a lot of pitch behind. I want Solanke just to be the legs of the rest of us. I just want him to run them around a bit. I don't think it's your game. I'll put you'll start against Brighton away, or you'll start at home to West Brom.
I'm telling you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah, but but he's not calling the shots here.
But I'm telling you to go fuck yourself regardless.
Well, if he walks out the door, what's he going to do, Neil?
But I'm saying, I've been pulling my tripe out for you in training, and you're picking that lad ahead of me, and I don't care about this grass to run into behinds. I can run into grass behinds as well. What, you're playing Coutinho back there, and he's going to be threading balls through. Have him thread the balls through to me. Do you not remember West Ham away last season, dickhead?
Yeah. Neil, this isn't how football works. I'm not having this.
It is a little bit out. I mean, the extreme language to one side. It is a little bit how football works. If you've got
a football match to win. Look, I'm saying
it's how managing a group of people works.
I'm creating a scenario where I think Solanke's beginning to pull. I just picked up something in a Klopp's language about Solanke the other day. He was talking about Grujic in similar tones earlier, and he was hinting at trying to get him in. I think you
should be getting him in.
I think he wants to give him a start.
I think that's fine, but I think that's your Stoke or that's your Brighton.
Maybe you might be right, and look. I'm flying. I'm saying I've just got a nagging feeling. I'm not sure he will. I of course get that Sturridge is in that pecking order. He's clearly ahead of him.
Sturridge just scored 2 and 2 and not set foot on the pitch since.
I know, which not as mad, is maddening if you're Sturridge as it is. So whether this comes too little, too late, who knows? I don't know. Neither of them may start. And I'm not going to be stunned. I'm not going to be. You think Firmino?
I think everything about the manager, everything, regardless of what logic would tell you, and about rotating players, and even with Klopp's newfound tendency to want to rotate, everything tells you that whenever we've thought that Sturridge is going to get a game, he can't play Firmino. If it's a big game, if it's an away game, and he wants a lad to press the opposition and to play with tactical acumen, he goes with Firmino.
Okay, and then he goes with him again against Chelsea because he has to be.
Yeah.
Then he's got Stoke away on the Tuesday
and then
night.
maybe there's the move. But the thing is with Chelsea,
soon. That's all.
The thing is with Chelsea that we've not discussed here is we're playing in lovely old Seville on Tuesday. They're playing in Karabag on Wednesday. Where the freaking hell's Karabag?
And they need to get something.
Where is Karabag? Is it Denmark?
I thought it was more East Europe. I don't know.
Azerbaijan,
Eastern Europe.
Next to Denmark. Yeah.
On Wednesday. So we're back on Wednesday. We're training Thursday.
It's Saturday night's Chelsea game. Yeah.
Saturday night Chelsea. So 5 o'clock on Saturday. So we've got an extra day's advantage there as well. Lesser travelling time. Say again.
It's a must-win Karabag, isn't it, for them?
Yeah, they can't be complacent about it. And Karabag also held Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, twice.
Oh, really? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been boxed into a position where I'm saying something like
You very much have.
I was flying.
But I agree with you in the terms of, if I'm not the manager, if I'm not the guy who's having to deal with it, and if I wasn't worried about the morale within the camp, I can see the logic in that, because I want to see Solanke on the pitch more. To be honest, I want to see him as a viable option, and I do think we're seeing the dying embers of Daniel Sturridge, as heartbreaking as that is. And I think that Solanke has more about him. Physically, his physical characteristics, I think he's got more potential to be a Klopp centre forward than what what Daniel Sturridge may well have as well, particularly as as Klopp is developing him now in these coming years.
I think in the current crop of games, I'll hedge my bets massively here. I think he will give Solanke a start, and any day he does give Solanke a start, Neil, I think it's going to slightly irk Daniel Sturridge. Slightly,
I think he can do that if he started Sturridge since
a few times since,
or not even just once. I think my point is, I think he can. So for instance, if he starts, let's say he starts Sturridge against Sevilla, whoever else he does or doesn't play, Chelsea happens, and then he goes to Stoke and he starts Solanke. Certainly, if Sturridge hasn't scored in the preceding game, then Sturridge is one of them where he might have to shrug his shoulders and think, right, I want to be in this team for Brighton. This is all fine, as I say, but I think a Champions League away game against a side Sturridge scored in a final against, where Sturridge has scored in his last two and is supposedly training really well and didn't go away on England duty. I think all in, if you are Sturridge, my point, and I was using extreme language before, but my point is that if you are Sturridge, you are going, is this fella absolutely messing me about now? Because why am I turning up, being fantastic in training, if I'm going to get ignored in circumstances like this one? And that's where there is a little bit of a thing. And Sturridge is an important man within the dressing room. The other thing that I'd be looking to do, if we can, and it depends on how we feel it's going, is I'd be looking at maybe bringing Chan in for Henderson, because I think keeping Henderson as tip-top as we can for the league games is important.
I think that will happen.
We'll see.
I think Chan will definitely. Chan
was shite when he came on, by the way.
He was awful,
Was he the one who let the ball go under his foot out for a throw-in inexplicably?
Yeah, but he doesn't. He's tended not to. I can't remember when Chan.
It didn't suit Chan it not being intense at that point, did it? He was like, we're just strolling now, are we? I'll show you strolling. You really made me laugh.
Let's put it this way. I think if there's any prospect whatsoever of Chan being persuaded to sign a new contract, it isn't going to be aided by having him out for 2 games to go into the sort of narrative of, you've got to be practical across more than just a game. I think Chan definitely starts in Seville. Don't know who's the fall. Could be Wijnaldum's the fall guy. Could be nobody. He could play with 3.
I just wouldn't be chance. I'd look to not chance Henderson. He'd probably be the one I'd look to not chance in that midfield.
He played 90 yesterday as well, did he?
Yeah.
Henderson, yeah.
Well, he could go. I think there's a draw suits both teams to a degree in Seville. And he could go very Mourinho about this and could put Chan at the base, Milner and Wijnaldum ahead, and just go put Oxlade-Chamberlain and 2 of the other 4 in. So he gives him his rotation. Henderson gets a rest too. I suspect you.
I think that's what he does.
I think that's what he does.
I've just looked up the flight time for Chelsea London to Azerbaijan is 6.5 hours. So they've got 6.5 hours. So they've got
New York cooking.
I know. It's got like 13 hours on the plane. Traveling Wednesday night. Well, Tuesday to get there, Wednesday to come back. So they're goosed. They're absolutely goosed by the time they get back.
I hope it's all 70s style and the Azerbaijan fans banging bin lids outside the hotel room all night, and they've packed a case full of beans.
Barricade in the airport on the way out.
Carabao Ultras, love it.
All right. The Cold War.
Dead quick. In fact, no, Dijk, I was going to ask if you man of the match, but you're all going to say Salah, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. Thank you very much to Stu Wright. Feel free to argue with me. Was anyone not going to say Salah? No. Stu Wright, Dave Segar and Rob Gutmann for this Anfield wrap this week. Remember what I said before about subscribing to Tour Player. This is the Anfield wrap. Have a lovely, lovely time supporting the Reds this week. Come with us.